Hello, my name is Aaron Aldama, and today I'll be teaching you about transformations. Let's begin. So the first part of our lesson includes reflections. So to reflect an image across the x or y axis, well, for the x axis, you would just take each coordinate and turn the y value into a negative value. So instead of this coordinate here being 7.5, 7.5, if you were to reflect it across the x-axis, it would then be 7.5, negative 7.5, since you would have to turn your y value into a negative. So to reflect your image across the y-axis, it's the same. Well, it's not really the same. It's the same process, but instead of using the y value of the coordinate, you would use the x value of the coordinate. You would turn that into a negative. So let's use the same point. Instead of this being 7.5, 7.5, if you were to reflect it across the y-axis, it would be negative 7.5, 7.5. Next, I'll be teaching you how to reflect across y equals x and y equals negative x. And it might sound a bit confusing, but honestly, it's really not. And what you would really have to do is you would take your original image right here, and let's grab a vertice like 14.1. And if you wanted to reflect across y equals x, you would basically switch these values, and that's it. So instead of this being 14.1, it would be 1.14, which is this point right here. And if you want to reflect your image across y equals negative x, the process is the same, but you would have to switch the x and y values of your coordinate and turn both of them into negative values. So let's use the same point again. So 14.1, right? If you were to reflect this point across y equals negative x, this point here would be, instead of 14.1, it would be negative 1 and negative 14, which is right here. And here's the written part. I wrote this little reminder for both you and me in case each of us forget. To translate an image in the x or y directions, you basically take your original point and then you would just either add or subtract x or y values to that point. So say if a problem is asking you to move a point negative 15 units in the x direction, so that would be 7.5 right here. You would then just basically subtract 15 from 7.5. Well, that's really blurry. So instead of this being 7.5, 7.5 minus 15 would be negative 7.5. And that's the same for if you want to translate your image in the y direction. You either add or subtract the values into the y value of your coordinate. Now, dilation is another easy transformation to understand. It's basically like a multiplication problem. So if a problem is asking you to dilate an image or a point by a number, you basically take the original the original coordinate of your shape, and multiply that by the scale factor. So let's say a problem is asking me to dilate this point, 7.5, 7.5, by a scale factor of 2. You would basically multiply both the x and y values by 2. Therefore, the dilated point would be 15, 15. And if it's a fraction, like I said, you just multiply the x and y values by the scale factor. And there's your point. Now, rotation is probably the hardest one for me to explain, so I made a little note for both you and me. So when it comes to rotation, there are two ways to rotate a shape, either 90 degrees clockwise, or 3 ways, my bad. 90 degrees clockwise, 90 degrees counterclockwise, or 180 degrees. 180 degrees is probably the easiest one to explain. All you would really have to do is turn your x and y values into negative values. For 90 degrees clockwise, you would just switch your coordinates and basically turn the x value into a negative right here. And for 90 degrees counterclockwise, you would do the same thing, except this time the y value is the one that's getting turned into a negative value. And this is basically an example. So thank you.